Imagine being stuck inside your house for 3 days straight because of heavy rain. You've got a roof over your head, heating, a fridge full of food, and a smartphone in your hand. And yet, you're completely miserable. Now, strip all of that away. Remove the roof. Remove the walls. Remove the stored food, the dry clothes, the waterproof jacket, and the hot drink. Put yourself in a freezing dark forest in prehistoric Europe, 60,000 years ago, trapped in a relentless downpour that hasn't stopped for weeks. The temperature is hovering just above freezing. Water is dripping down your neck, soaking through your skin, and quietly stealing your body heat. We love to talk about the dramatic stuff when it comes to ancient humans. Saber-toothed cats, epic migrations, fierce tribal wars. But rain. Rain is unglamorous. It is relentless. And it was arguably more dangerous to our ancestors than almost anything with teeth. It killed fires. It rotted food. It caused hypothermia in minutes. So how did they actually survive weeks of endless rain without Gore-Tex, weather apps, or waterproof tents? Let's find out. To understand how ancient humans survived, we first have to understand what they were fighting. And surprisingly, it wasn't drowning. The real, silent killer was heat loss. Water conducts heat away from the human body roughly 25 times faster than air does. Think about that for a second. That isn't just feeling a little chilly. That is the difference between sitting in a cool room and sitting in a freezing lake. When your clothes are soaked, your body begins to bleed heat at a rate your metabolism simply cannot keep up with, especially if the wind is blowing. This is how hypothermia strikes. You don't need Arctic ice or a blizzard. You just need a mild wind, wet clothes, and a temperature of around 10 degrees Celsius. That's a normal British summer night. That's a spring evening in Central Europe. Ancient humans didn't know the thermodynamics of it. They didn't read science textbooks. They knew it because they watched each other die from it. Which means their very first instinct wasn't hunting, and it wasn't foraging. It was keeping that core body temperature alive at all costs. Which brings us to the holy grail of survival. Fire. We all think of fire as an event, something you make when you're cold. But in the middle of a torrential rainstorm, starting a fire from scratch with wet wood and soggy tinder is almost impossible. A dead fire in a hypothermic situation isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence written in wet ash. So, how did ancient humans solve this? They didn't treat fire as an event. They treated it as infrastructure. Fire was something you maintained continuously. Across ancient cultures, from the Inuit in the north to indigenous groups in Australia, carrying live fire was an art form. They wrapped smoldering embers in slow-burning organic materials like damp moss, specific tree barks, or dried fungus, keeping them alive inside protective containers for hours while on the move. Archaeological sites across Europe reveal hearths that burned continuously for years. Not relit every day, but kept alive, fed, and treated like a living member of the tribe. In fact, this created one of the earliest divisions of labor in human history. While some went out to track animals, someone's dedicated job in bad weather was simply to sit with the fire, shielding it, feeding it, and making sure the group didn't wake up to darkness and death. Of course, a fire needs a roof over its head to survive heavy rain. And this shatters a major myth. Ancient humans weren't just huddled inside dark caves all day. But even with fire and shelter, survival ultimately came down to something we modern humans have completely forgotten: environmental literacy. We check a weather app on our phones when we feel a drop of rain. Ancient humans didn't have that option. They read the sky. They could smell petrichor, the earthy scent of rain, hours before a drop fell. They watched insects swarm differently, birds fly lower, and forest animals shift toward high ground. They made decisions about where to camp long before the storm hit, choosing south-facing slopes where the ground drained and dried faster. And above all, they didn't try to do it alone. Surviving a week of endless rain as a lone individual is nearly impossible. But surviving it as a tribe, that changed the math. They practiced communal warmth, huddled tightly together so their bodies shared heat. They shared food equitably from hidden stores they had buried weeks in advance. The rainy season wasn't just an enemy to be fought. It was a test of cooperation, memory, and sheer human stubbornness. Today, we have waterproof jackets, central heating, weather radar, and drainage systems that sweep rainwater away before we even notice it arrived. We take all of that comfort for granted. But we built every single piece of that modern world because, deep in our past, someone spent a very long, very wet night figuring out that smoke keeps a shelter dry, that animal fat makes leather waterproof, and that staying close to your people is the only way to make it to morning. They figured it out first, using nothing but time, attention, and an absolute refusal to let the sky defeat them. If you want to dive even deeper into the secret psychology and hidden survival tactics of our ancient ancestors, check out the link in the description. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.